Yes. It's back. Hearts, but iron. The fourth. So, returning once again to Paradox's map game spanning the various superpositions which could collapse into some number of World War IIs. This time after the release of 2 hefty content DLCs containing many a feature, including various mechanics and unique focus trees spanning. The first content pack was British Commonwealth focused. All ye various dominions have been showered in helpful bits and granted their various particulars. And then the more recent one, alongside its other mechanical improvements ongoing, that'll be poked at as we go, covered Central Europe in a bit more detail. And that done some test games of this before moving about to streaming. And the more of these get put into the blender, the more ways the war can derail. I look forward to how many variables will be in motion when it is time to just get every single notable moderate-sized country with its own unique possibilities for throwing the whole delicate balance of power out of alignment. For which I have a couple runs worth of ideas to explore in the game in its current state, which contains, so the 2 content packs were Together for Victory and Death or Dishonor. I'm going to explore several possibilities for this, some here during this stream, which you can notice some elements of the layout look slightly different, and I am playing this game instead of avoiding it due to mysterious crashes, because this is occurring on a shiny new travel machine, so as to facilitate content while on the road. Made possible by viewership. And necessity, it's the other travel machine it was replacing was ages old and slowly collapsing due to bit rot. It will rest with honors, having served a great purpose. But anyway, new travel machine that is capable of many things, that has many strong numbers. Be put to good use for this and other runs of this and other games. For the first of which, so I'm gonna jump in here to the Dominion of South Africa, which you might know today as just South Africa, also featuring presence of, the name immediately escapes me of which country spun off over there. Much of African geometry is not a thing I am commonly acquainted with. It is a part of the world that I am not well studied in, which is always a disappointing thing to note, as it is a sizable portion of the world and its population and its history. And we will inflict ourselves on part of that history. Since as we get started here, I'm going to hop into the old focus tree, and per common structural themes, where we have our political options facing us here on the leftmost edge. Our first major branch here on the political side of things, as a member of the Commonwealth, is either remain loyal to the Empire, or maybe don't. We're gonna not do that. We're just gonna kinda turn our backs on the old ways, on the old realm, on our far-off alleged overlords. The mother country full of nerds, gonna traitor them. Right good. Furthermore, if we dive another layer into there, so we have branches that lead down each ideology, and then within those, some degree of flexibility of aligning with the pre-existing faction for that ideology, or wandering off into the wilderness to do your own thing, of which the best of those is sitting over here, as we favor the left, and then snub the existing international leftist movement, as really that's more in character for any extremist left-wing nation and trying to fall into line with an external authority. And instead, we can build ourselves a South African socialist republic built around the principle of counter-imperialism, anti-colonialism. And then, having done so, set forth on a grand expedition to dislodge all of the peoples of Africa from the iron grip of European imperialism. Be replaced with South African imperialism, but we get to that when we get to that. Replaced with liberty, coexistence, freedom, and so forth. Just beholden to our interests. When we're done with this place, they're gonna print the globes the other way around. But we have a long way to go in order to get there, since you can look at our large numbers up here, and we have a whole 10 points of industry, and a whole 31,000 manpower, which is currently being extremely bottlenecked by the fact that this South Africa, this 1936 South Africa, this is a very apartheid South Africa. This is your very divided, imperial, exploitative puppet state, beep, latched onto a population that largely doesn't want it here. Welcome, beep. And there are ways to respond to that as you go about your political options. And for the path that we end up on, our way to unravel that main problem and take the cork off of our ability to make use of the population for fighting and liberty and so forth is way down the left edge here. War Measures Act, and then we gradually, in the process of doing some bits of escalation, we can reconstitute first an armed civil service that allows everyone to participate, and then eventually manage to just kind of properly open the gates and get our actual populace re-engaged. It takes a while of doing and some justification, but we can eventually dismantle some of these mechanisms and get ourselves on more egalitarian footing. Some of which is also over here. We're going to be gradually unraveling some things. We have, off the top, we have, history of segregation that's sitting there. We're going to dismantle that via the Cape Core. And then over here, we have the Osserbrandwang? Osserbrandwag? Ossenbrandwag. We have this wag. This is the name of a right-wing political party that I think doesn't actually form until a couple of years from now, but it's a mix of conquered Germans and angry Boers who are very much about going that other direction of more white imperialism at the expense of the locals. And if you are going either non-fascist path, you eventually have a way to break up their influence. Or if you...
Your gold is always welcome here.
Ah, welcome. If you are going fascist, you instead support and inflame them and do as you do. But we won't. We do other things. Better things. And then, meanwhile, over here, accessible to everyone, we got a pretty straightforward industry path. Get a bunch of infrastructure, free buildings, generate a little bit of extra resources. And our various military reform paths that contain free boat yards and free airports and benefits on research and all those categories. some other early moves to get into place. And then we will get the timer rolling on what, for the most part, early game for a lot of countries, especially ones that start in the democratic sphere of influence, it's the waiting game. We're going to be doing mostly nothing, hoping that the Spanish Civil War starts somewhere that's convenient for our schedule, so that we can get in there and gather some combat data. Speaking of which, one of our first research picks is actually going to be Mountaineers. Of course, I usually completely and unthinkingly focus entirely on industry and the electronic-related things early on, just for that good economic payout of making numbers go up. A further benefit, for so long as we remain within the Empire, we're part of a tech-sharing program where for each other member of the Empire that has a tech that we do not, we get a 10% discount on researching that thing. This can stack quite sizably, so we can actually get a lot of saved research days in terms of overall effort, if we are willing to instead hold off a little bit and only grab things a bit behind the pack. We end up with more science overall in exchange for not riding the leading edge of as many science things. So yeah, we want to build a whole bunch of military factories, put most of them to use just building plain old rifle. Leave. Also, we're going to get started on a little bit of miscellaneous equipment and artillery. So our overall goal militarily is, since even once we are kind of built up, we're still going to be very light on industry, not particularly large in terms of manpower, and in terms of our strategic position, we're only going to have land fights that we start that'll happen on very low infrastructure territory. So we want to go light on supply weight, but still try to get as much concentration of firepower at good cost benefit, etc. We have a really awkward position that we need to thread, and we'll probably end up under blockade forever once we have to pick a fight with the Empire. So we want to have an army that we can build on a budget that's alright-ish in terms of, like, human economy. But then also, I may as well I'll get a couple of rando infantry training. Have that effort going. We need to build the army on a budget, but also build it to not squander human lives, as they are all precious to us, and should only be spent in optimal positions. But then also, we can't lean too heavily on too fancy equipment that it would be hell to supply through the relative wasteland of the open. Well, kind of rude to call it. Logistically speaking, it's a wasteland. There's no express rails, there's no highways, there's no canals through a lot of this. The only major infrastructure will be there because we put it there, or our eventual allies will put it there. As we can gradually, as you can see as I click around here, there are now a bunch of proper, like, entities there for various nations in Africa to be pried out from under their overlords and set free and put to work. Most, but not all. Some remain on the to-do list, surely to manifest after future patches. Furthermore, also, we form an army here, throw it under our one free starter general we have, just Ed Brink. Gonna get some training exercises running, since those will cost a handful of rifle in exchange for scraping together some of the precious EXP that we're going to need to reconfigure these armies into something sensible. Since this also slide a bit more speed onto the dial there. Got 3 templates to start with. 6-point infantry, 3-point infantry, and this abomination of 2 infantry and 2 light tanks. Look at you, you're not even on horses. What are you doing? Stop this. And fixing that is going to be terribly expensive in terms of experience. To even get them mounted, let alone eventually into trucks. Not gonna be great. Figure it out eventually, though. And until then, this is most of a good infantry division, so we'll be able to relatively quickly turn that into good times. This is dead weight, but that's fine. It's the weird tiny militia template. And then anything else that we want to use, we're gonna get our basic template off of researching it, so that's not too big a worry. All of you up to full size. And welcome to Manpower Crunch, where we will live almost forever. How it goes. Where we are. I get basic productivity of each of these running off my first couple of factory. Just so we have the materials there and can start adjusting the templates. Efficiency dialed up, and then eventually I will then scale up regular rifle production and start incorporating other things. Yep, there we are. Officially low on men. It happens. A lot. And let's see then, after that, I have further ambitions to consider. Since from a couple of test games I've been able to work out that we can kind of half reasonably budget out a small air force and a small number of basic vehicles, either just standard tank or switch them over to like little lightweight SPGs or mobile anti-aircraft guns as the times allow. So yes, while at the moment this feels like unattainable, far-off fever dreams of military-industrial complexes, once we're really geared up for fighting, we'll have all this and more, and never enough. As it happens. See those 25 convoys we have up there? That's all we have to rely on for anything commerce-related. We don't have boatyards right now. We can't build more even if I want to. A precious, irreplaceable merchant marine that we have to go beg the homeland for replacements if we want them. We will never do that. We will never accept gifts from Britain. I don't need your handouts. I am not part of your system, and so forth. You're not my real dad, George V. Or Stan Baldwin. Since also, furthermore, so among the various mechanics that I suppose will gradually get demonstrated and talked about as things move along. Together for Victory, as part of providing more framework for playing within the Empire, added this thing. There is now a spectrum of like 5 different states that a subordinate country can be in, of which we are the lightest, Dominion, where in this state we're mostly independent. We're just not allowed to start wars. We get auto-called into wars if Britain wants us there, and Britain gets a little bit of a trade discount if they want to buy exports from us, which they won't because the only thing we export is chromium, and everyone has too much chromium. No one wants these useless chrome orbs. So effectively, all this does is prevent us from starting wars and require us to, on paper, join their wars. However, this state can change, either dragging us deeper into submission or clawing our way towards freedom. And various military-industrial things influence the state of that via this bar. Where we're going to get a bunch of autonomy points generated. Once we get our initial focus out of the way, that'll just start charging up our rebelliousness and eventually put us in a position to buy freedom. Even more so once we then choose which ideology we want to lean support. It's this one. We're going this way. We have one direction. We are the South. We can only go north. It's all up from here. But yes, as you can see, spread out there, various military-industrial interactions that we can do could increase our dependence or allow us to assert our freedom. And one of those is, if we started accepting Lend-Lease equipment from our overlord, that makes us more dependent. Whereas if the tables were turned and we were providing weaponry to the home country instead, that would allow us to push even more freedom. Since, wait, why do we need you here? We're the ones making the guns. Except we're not yet. Someday. Soon. But not now. Eventually. In the future. Yes, plan is abandon Westminster, empower the workers, and then, so a thing about the political focus tree here, we have a bunch of slow-burning things that I need to get lit as soon as possible. So, they are priority to get started, but then once we hit around here, we start to face bottlenecks that will slow us down for various amounts of time, and then during those windows of opportunity, we leap over to do industry stuff or military stuff as suits the situation. So for example, like once we get to this layer here, both supporting Spain, one requires Spain to start its war, which could happen at any time. But then two, you can see there we need 60% autonomy progress and at least 10% popular support for our local Communist Party. And we can go intervene with the Republicans, and it won't matter, they'll probably still lose. We do not have enough firepower to bring in to be a decisive participant, but we can get a lot of valuable combat data. And that's what matters. The data. For victory. Victory data. And over here, at least 10% popular support as well, to start opening the doors to volunteers. And in doing so, start weakening influence of the wags, of the brand wags, of Osserwang over there. But yeah, there's no telling when that war will actually start. I've seen it as early as having already happened and as late as next year. It's very variable. I'm really looking forward to when they give Spain a proper focus tree. Then, you know, that war and everything relating to it and that follows up on it will actually have meat and substance and mechanisms behind it. Likewise, China. Really looking forward to when they fully flesh out the Chinese civil war and war effort. That'll be good times. Those are the two early game conflicts that break out, and it will be great to see them get full attention and develop substance. That remilitarism. But yeah, especially now for the war in Europe, when you are not in historical mode, the fact that now just everyone in here has their focus tree for themselves now, I believe. Yep, Romania is also in there. Now having their uniques. Yeah, just everyone in this whole continuous block except for like Albania, like everyone above this line. No, Bulgaria is still generic. There's a pretty sizable continuous block of people with full focus trees now, so just everyone in here now has options for derailing the war and causing shenanigans and starting their own factions. So the whole escalation in Europe has a lot more ways it can go wrong now. It becomes more and more of a toss-up the more elements get put into play, and that's great. That's replay value. That's storytelling potential. Emergent narratives. There's our electromechanisms. Take a look around to see what else is up. Because, like, yeah, normally machine tools, construction, extremely high priority for me, but that means they're also going to be high priority for everyone else. And if I just wait that first 190 days for everyone else to get them done right away, then I get half off on them. And will have instead benefited from discounts elsewhere. Let's see, I've started on Grand Battle Plan, and I think that'll do alright for me. For the most part, like, I don't have the raw manpower to do mass assault, or the firm industrial backing to go with firepower or mobile warfare as my focus. So just Grand Battle into infiltration seems like a pretty solid move. I will eventually be able to build a small number of boats. Like a destroyer swarm, or maybe some submarines. Enough for raiding and some semblance of coastal defense. Close this early on. Ready? I'll wait a bit. I'll just let that research slot charge and see if better opportunities show up a month from now. Any day now, Spain. Well, no, not take your time, Spain. Relax. Kindly postpone festivities until I have some sort of special forces blob to throw in there and do experiments. Starting to just internally sort some things out here. Vaguely juggling priorities, because another, like, strategy thing to do within the bounds of the mechanics as they are right now is for any resource that I can't get more of either inside my borders or in the areas we're going to be fighting in early on, I want to plan, ideally, especially when I'm dealing with small numbers right now, around using it in groups of 8. So for example, by setting up 3 factories working on aircraft and 2 working on support equipment, that will be 8 aluminum accounted for. So I will be fully using 1 point of imports exactly on the nose without having to overflow. Nothing squandered there. I think tungsten actually ends up being pretty weird for imports. I don't have space to use a lot of it, but then also, once we get rolling through our neighbors, once it's actually time to fight the British, will relatively quickly be able to set up Zimbabwe here. Be tungsten available there. More useless chrome. Thousands of chrome. Bizarro European wars can go really fascinating directions. Like, in the test game leading up to this for, like, planning and routing of war buildup, what wound up happening was Austria signed an alliance with Italy. And so when Hitler showed up wanting to annex them, they refused and called on Benito to defend them. And so Italy, Austria, and Hungary invaded South Germany, and then in a quirk of like an act of AI foolishness that wraps around to making sense because it's in character for such things to occur, Germany then tries to demand the Sudetenland, and naturally Czechoslovakia refuses because why would they submit such outlandish demands from this clown man who thinks he's running a 1,000-year empire? And so that escalates to war, drags in the Western allies who were willing to defend them. And so the 1,000-year empire went down in, like, 38. And then that created the necessary groundwork for World War II-2 to break out a year and a half later, as the Italians try to go after Greece, and then that escalates and then settles, and then World War II-3 occurs when the Soviets overrun Poland, which had until then been left alone because none of that got a chance to get started due to the early dismantling of Hitler. That's the kind of early games you can get in Hearts of Iron now. The good times of, oh my, I have left this idle too long. I may have wasted whole research days. Senseless. Shameful. Infuriating. So, what can I do with you? Guess I'll take radios. Those will be useful. Those are along the way to getting a little bit of radar. Also, I do vaguely have the construction budget to get some defenses set up around the Cape that will hopefully then serve to, like, give me the force multipliers I need for my scant handful of primitive interwar aircraft to be able to defend my skies. Will go off shortly. Then lines up quite nicely for us to be able to hire our ideological minister to start pushing party popularity. Also serves as our first bottleneck on the political path. And start doing railways. And also, so as far as our eventual need to defend ourselves, this thing right here, we're gonna have so many forts, so many free forts just spontaneously spring into existence across the entire coastline. Forts everywhere, forts for days. And, oh, was that not enough for you? You want more forts? You can get more forts. Would you like just 8 forts everywhere? Just take them. We can't give them away. Bring me your old gold. I give you fortresses. World has managed to stay quiet into May. Good sign. May be able to get some things done, and there we go. Reporting internal change. It begins. The Autonomy Progress is the big one that served as a throttle on our ability to intervene. 600 points on this bar, and I'm getting a point per day. And don't have many options for trying to slide that any further. Like, what am I gonna... Could I send some of my meager rifle production back to Britain as an act of defiance? Assert our independence by leaving fresh boots and cans of spam at the gates of Parliament. Really can't be throwing those away. We need those guns for things. Much as we need those bits, which strangely having their number cut off by the size of the capture box there. Contributions to the war fund. At some point during that development, this handy stats window was added. Breakdowns of things. Once an army is actually in combat, there will be combat logs and win rates and other such informations. For now, we can just use it to monitor how many guns we have spent on practice. Important stuff. But not yet. We are within a week of having our mountaineering design. Good times from that. Yeah, there we go. There's half-cost machine tools. Probably by the time radio is done, it'll be half-cost construction as well. We stay behind the curve as a ruse. We lure the other dominions into a false sense of security. Death or Dishonor, and the patches surrounding it added these wonderful mystery lines. where there were ongoing problems with the AI trying to send armies into the depths of the Sahara where they would inevitably die. And this was not so great, and it was kind of weird to convince them that it was not a good idea. The AI, that is, and its decision-making algorithms. So what they instead did, as a good enough for now measure, was they added these barriers, which serve to make various swaths of terrain impassable, of which the main one is this borderline around the Sahara, which no, you're not going to march armies through here. And then they additionally used this to cut off some of the paths through the Himalayas, so that any fighting in this area has to operate through a couple of places where there are, actual reasonable mountain passes where armies could go. They made Afghanistan even more defensible. And yes, we're now actually making cannons. Just a few. It's a start. From which I can also... Alright, start with the Mountaineer template, or, well, yeah, I'll start with the Mountaineer template, work from it, and probably that'll be the entirety of what I work for. Go with support guns, or go with line guns. What's kind of on the fence here is I could either focus on keeping their situational bonuses for terrain as high as possible, or just kind of transform them into the usual standard line infantry. Franco-British alliance. Prepare for the worst. Worst possible outcome is ordinary build-up to World War II. How about a little excitement? Oh yeah, let me just cancel recruitment of the standard infantry. Instead, train some mountain crew. And then I might just go ahead and commit to turning all my standard infantry over to mountain folk. With the general principle being that, for the most part, a mountaineer is just better than a standard infantry, at the cost of more guns. 40 more guns for most of its combat stats are better or similar. So if you're willing to foot the bill of putting those extra equipment out there, you can just use Mountaineers as your standard infantry. No one will stop you. Yeah, that's worth it. Those penalties are going to be bought off when we put some engineers into the Mountain Corps. And even then, they still end up positive on everything, but, like, yeah, jungle, river, swamp. Or, yeah, they'll earn that back once I have an engineering team. That's what the support equipment is for, mostly. Just to get these goodly shovelmen. Now I have a use for my cannons. I have need for 360 cannons. Currently operating at 1 gun per week. Getting that properly revved up is worth spending on the import, even if I'm not very heavily employing the materials. It'd be nice if there were some fluid way that excess resources turned into benefits elsewhere. That would probably take the edge off being a country that's rich in a useless material that has no purpose. if somehow these 98 chrome became anything else of use, or the other 90 chrome that no one will ever import because no one needs to import chrome. Anyone who can afford to use the chrome has chrome of their own. Part of the eventual spread, we will have space for both anti-air and anti-tank artillery. Motor vehicles for a convoy run, and then some manner of light warship, either destroyers or submarines. Probably destroyers. I'd rather have a surface ship. Fortunately, our complete lack of military industry means that we can't afford to start running up against our complete lack of manpower. It just won't happen. We don't have enough material to even pretend that we could recruit 20,000 people. Not yet. Training with our artillery. It's fine. Eventually they will be abundant. The capture. There is some kind of weirdness that's going on with relative cursor position. The mysteries. Get 10% off concentrated industry. Or no % off synthetic oil. Which actually is fairly well. Hold on, I know somewhere in my focuses, yeah, right there in my focuses, there's a big old industry discount, general purpose. I will use that to get half-price synth oil, which is a valuable thing to do because they did buff synthetic oil refineries since release. Baseline 7 oil, 4 rubber. That's very good. One of those will be enough to make us not depend on imports or the meager amount of vehicle production that we can handle. Second will let us go beyond. Right around here, my mouse is actually pointing at the top left corner of this box. Over there. But the capture thinks it's over here. Such are the mysteries. I think it's just a resolution weirdness thing. Maybe I don't have this set to be using all of the pixels that are actually on the screen, and so it's getting stretched oddly. sort of disconnect between true position and actual position, visible position. Know where you are by knowing where you're not. Right where you're not from where you may have once been. We are in October and Spain is still not at war. But it means we'll be on schedule. That thing I mentioned earlier might get a chance to happen. Alright, I will take this early so I don't forget about it. And let's see, let's bank on having enough time. Let that fellow pay off. Eventually, out of the rest of these, I want that captain of industry, since we're going to be building a lot of roads in order to make things work, in order to be able to move armies around. We have to be ready to go elsewhere, securing our core laws for getting mobilized, and then having a theorist would be nice. Our various production firms online. In my experience, a Spain without a civil war is completely unheard of. It can't be done. It won't be done. Don't you dare not have a civil war, Spain. Visible here. The beginnings of fixing our manpower problem. That necessary first step. Let's see. Yeah, I can get a focus related boost to excavation, and the rest of those are ahead of time anyway, so we're pretty alright for industry right now. For any... Whoa! The incident. Just now. Beware. We have no war plan for this, the arrival of viewers from the depths. Welcome to Hearts. Welcome to Iron. Welcome to Decisions About Research. 3% off battle plan. Yeah, let's get started on that. We need a plan to manage this. Where to review here, vaguely an hour in. We are South Africa. We are of the Empire, but the Empire is a nerd, and we will betray them eventually. We're working on it. Struggling towards independence and counter-imperial conquest. Right now, waiting patiently for Spain to get a civil war, so that we can intervene and gather valuable combat data. Any day now. Alright. Next draft. Government Ministry. Let's get the Theorist online. Get Rensburg in here. Give us a bit more passive experience bleed. Very slowly, we will learn things about how army good. We have template, but could be better? What if send more guys up the mountain? We used six packs in the regular infantry. What if the same, but with climbing gear? Think about it. Mountains are really big. You could fit a lot of people on a mountain. Just need rope. Llamas. Need equipment for everyone eventually. Early game production numbers are always very sad for their estimations of it will be 10,000 years before you have a fully equipped army. And then you mobilize and suddenly everything flips around. Just pick up the phone and now you have 1,000,000 cannons. Take a look at this agreement that managed to form wherever it was. Whose was it? Who's it centered on? Somebody! Hungary renewed the Rome Accords. They're looking to buddy up with the Italians and prevent anyone from going after Austria. Now we have heavy engineering. These are both similarly valuable, both necessary eventually. Kind of a coin toss as to which I'd rather have sooner. Employment. Is that it's an overall production boost, it's a +%, and then it's also canceling out the remaining penalty from the Osserwag. Just close up that whole branch of things. You know what? Anyone can work anywhere for any reason. Yeah, it looks like Rensburg is worth enough experience that I don't particularly need to keep exercising. You can just exercise the mind. Exercise in theory. Although, that's not too bad. We only spent a couple hundred rifles over the last year of military training. This just becomes the peace and prosperity timeline where nothing ever goes wrong. Everyone just lives long, healthy, productive lives. Unacceptable. We'll have to fix it. Get out there and do something about it. Factory operational in 2 months. Or sooner, now that we have concentration of industry, and let's just spend this. Learn to brew those good oils. I feel like I'll still have use for ordinary infantry as coast garrison. Have someone less valuable to stand on the harbors and take advantage of the fortifications that we're going to throw in there. Then years of careful planning, building up righteous outrage to dethrone a problem that then doesn't manifest. We will go to London and make our demands, and they will just be like, sure. This all just seems terribly reasonable. Very well, here you go. Empires are so last century. Let's just stop that. Just no more of that. Put it away. So those modifiers kicking in, it's just going to do a whole lot for our overall productivity. Even with the new recruitment ambitions, we are hovering at a year and a half before we have supplies, and there we go, new stuff going up in the queue. Actually managing to use all of our available steel for what little of that there is. Eventually we will restrict and then shut down exports, since there's no material we generate on site that isn't more valuable fed directly into our factories. We don't have surplus goods. We need those orbs for victory. More experience, and I can put that support equipment into adding some engineers. They're remarkably powerful and perhaps, but hypothetically by some players, underappreciated. Look at those numbers. Look at those strong numbers you get for just 30 shovels. Want to just be better at everything forever? Wherever you go? Engineers. Spain, on some level, I do appreciate you taking your time and letting me get started and explain things and carry on as I do, making numbers go up, but really it's spring of 37, you are the main event. The people demand blood. People who is I, and presumably at least one additional person. I and my one or more comrades. Potentially limitlessly many in number. We'd like you to do the thing where you split in half. Okay. Look now, look what you've done, Spain. All those flight crew distracted by the absence of news about a Spanish civil war. Way to ruin airship travel, Spain. Well, there's that incident occurring on schedule. Someone knows how to get their early game war started when it's supposed to fire. The incident, roughly here. Sadly, I cannot instead send volunteers to other unrelated incidents. My focus is specifically about Spain. It has to be Spain. Unless Spain wars, I can't get the ball rolling on discussing intervention. Not ready for the concept of a non-Spain civil war. Or just regular war. If anything is going to happen politics-wise, it will start in Spain. The alternate timeline where all of Spain's political factions collapse into infighting. Nobody gets any wars. The reign of the neutrals begins. Come on, look at this pie chart. Look at this inevitable end of peace sign. I'm gonna let the world start spinning here and wander off onto the other monitor. That's an important part of how this is being made possible, facilitation-wise. Travel machine has less space available. Fortunately, I am able to attach it to additional screens. Let us make some adjustments. This probably does then is... No, that borks it in the other direction. Mysterious. Figured what was happening was like, this is how many pixels it's actually using when rendering, and then by stretching it out to fit the actual screen scale, problems were emerging. But now it seems that, yeah, that's absolute position of mouse cursor. It's just... Up it to this other source. Will that behave? No, that remained anomalous. I'll have to stick with it. Look, this is what happens when you don't start your wars on time. Chaos reigns. Our attention wanders into the sea, and the laws of time and space break down. At least we have tools. Powerful new tools by which to hopefully resize the capture into appropriate proportions for less monkery. It's not like we have any more pressing concerns, what with this continuing absence of a civil war to intervene in. But you could prevent this, Spain. To these numbers. The stream also marks a first expedition into the world of OBS Studio and its ways and mysteries. One of those cases of software that is technically more powerful with a high barrier to entry of, now look what you've done, Spain. Look at all these other historical events that are happening when they're supposed to on schedule. All these horrible tragedies you could prevent by yourself doing the thing you're supposed to. Look, I'm not here to explain time. I'm here to fulfill it. I was not capturing a cursor at all. Well, I sort of told it to do that. Let's spell it right again. What do we feel now? Nope. Nope. Still misaligned. Still emphasized, exaggerated. Still the mysteries. Pain. I won't say that I blame you, but everything else I say will be understood to mean this. The people will know. Free Captain. Go for partial mobile? Well, no. We'll be able to go all the way to war economy once we ideology flip. No need for in-betweens. Every day in Madrid, more confusing, angrily worded telegraphs. The ambassador from South Africa again. He keeps saying, do a trick. The desk of the Right and Honorable Prime Minister of South Africa. Jim Herzog. Fight me, you nerd. Reluctant to research anything equipment related when I don't have the industry to then build that equipment anyways. It's like knowing about it too far in advance just seems wasted. We'll prepare defenses for the war. That will happen any day now. All these plans here, Spain. Well, we managed to build enough popularity that I can just move directly to burning portraits. Precursor step to actually disconnecting ourselves from the Allied forces. Now I will keep militarizing. Our odds of actually succeeding at the counter-imperial wars go up the more distracted the other usual players are by other things. Here we are at summer of 37, and there is war in the east. You're late, Spain. Spain, come on. Wait, really? A naval battle? China sent its navy out to do things? That might just be a convoy raid. We don't have full intel on it. Yep, sure, not allowed to press that button for a very long time. With my only shortcut. Disrupted by Spaniards. These damn tranquil, friendly, peace-loving Spaniards. Goodly friends to all, sorting out their ideological differences with words. Arbitration, negotiation, exchange of ideas. Throw a punch! At least we're getting all charged up for freedom. Once I get undominioned, I'll just start my own damn wars. Liberty, Spain. Lisbon, what are you up to? They will usually try for neutrality. Go ahead and queue up another couple odds and ends. Just to have him on the pile. Basic round of anti-aircraft defenses. Airports in every state. Structure's looking pretty adequate. Right, my oil refinery. That's important. Valuable preventative measure. Anyone else in here looking to start a world war? You know, that thing we're here for? Britain? Britain, you gonna empire somebody? One of the other reasons to not mind sticking around the Allies is over here. Britain has a set of focuses for shoving a bunch of industry into the Dominions, so if you just sit around long enough, you can scam some free factories out of them. America. Alright, so we have the Pact of Rome. Small counter-German alliance in Central Europe. Would the three of you like to initiate world war? Need that extra material in order to run the now existent factories that I have. From which, even with the metal shortage, we're still going to get gun eventually. Guns we never get to fire. The saddest weapons of all. Went on vacation to do a war, and instead the war has taken vacation from me. Welcome. Welcome to stream of peacefully waiting around for nothing of particular import to happen on an international political scale. Suppose this is happening. Somewhere in all of this, all sorts of valuable combat data is getting generated. Just imagine. I'm gonna save up power to buy independence. 120 off the top for burning the portraits. Yeah, we'll earn that back by then. Let's partly mobilize. Had to go and say aloud that there's no way that the Spanish Civil War doesn't happen. It always happens. You set your watch by it. Right there at the top of every checklist for build-up to World War II. How is anyone going to test their terrifying cutting-edge weaponry if no one starts a Spain war? You're letting us all down. You have one job. We can't set any watches like this. Time is meaningless. The laws of the universe said civil war in Spain, for sure. We're managing to recruit new divisions. Had to do with start up the war, Spain. passed up perfectly good war weather. France, are you agitating? Building more forts. The timeline where the first war actually did put an end to war, and there will be no further wars except this one we don't talk about. Just reclassify that as not a war. The equipment ratio is looking. Days of rifles, 70 days of cannons, 200 days of support equipment. Alright, throw more artillery. Standard line. On net results, they only end up bad at river, jungle, and woods. Main okay at mountain, hill, fortress. They remain prepared to defend. Whenever you're ready, Spain. Well, at least the world is tense enough that I can do war measures. It's also worth political power. Okay. Start down that path. It's as if the local populace had some sort of pent-up aggression that's not being properly vented through some sort of intervention in a civil war in another country half a world away. Or like quarter world. And there we go. One step of the ritual is complete. Meet Moses Katane, head of the South African Communist Party for, I think this is around the year when he actually became head of the group. I did some degree of limited research on some of the names involved here. We now have that much. We have the party in control. Just carry on, disentangling our laws. Designing our core infantry formation. Finding someone to pick a fight with. finally, February 38, we have, it's okay, good, it's go time. Never mind the war measures, we'll get to those later, if possible. Let's see. Do I have to like let fraction of just a warm second? Alright, I have to let war measures complete. That will slow us down, but not critically. What will it mean for Spain? It means we finally get to go over there and have our paramilitary vacation. Let me just take 4 of these and set them aside by doing the opposite. Put 3 of these in the other army, and then these 4 will be ready to ship over and have a time. Don't worry, Spain. We'll be there soon. Yes, finally here. Spanish Civil War. They're actually, for the further minor good UI improvements that occurred over the ages. Neat. So the war summary screen here has a bunch of extra information that's very helpful for looking at the big picture. For the case of the Spanish Civil War, it nicely spreads out here that on its own, just the 2 Spains are very close to symmetrical in terms of numbers on the big board. And then what usually sways it is the fact that the nationalists will end up with support from Germany and Italy, whereas the Republicans will only get support from the Soviets. So that will work out to tipping the scales in favor of the nationalists. However, this time, we might get in on the ground floor. Early adopters of Spain and the wars therein. Furthermore, for the most part of what characterizes the Spanish Civil War is both sides. Their armies are made of mostly terribly under-equipped light infantry, just militia that have recently mobilized, with then a little bit of a firm core of the portions of the proper army that went each direction. Alright, let's get autonomous. Button of freedom. We're still in the Allies, so we still get the research benefits. We're just no longer subordinate to the United Kingdom. We start our own wars. Choose our own future. And let's see, yep, there we go, on schedule. Dual suspects have gotten in there. And we sure are low on bodies. Or at least on course to fix that. We're not low on bits. Need to wait a couple of months for the paperwork. First for the other thing, and then for the follow-up of the papers for actually the bill to do the thing where we send the volunteers. All of the efforts up to this point were on the marketing drive to build enthusiasm and support for the idea of intervening in a Spanish Civil War. All plans relating to the actual logistics of how we would do such a thing remained locked in the mystery cube. Well, that went quickly. Sometimes the bow over there will be able to hold out for quite a while. It's potentially a tough little city. Sometimes it folds. Numbers still look okay for the Republic side of things, though. Very embarrassing moment when it suddenly is realized that no one in our parliament knows where Spain is. All the enthusiasm was the result of having mistaken Spain for another country and not being willing to go back on that because it would mean admitting that magnitude of goof. Fine though, any day now, we commit to the initial pre-planning meeting to allocate resources towards authorization. We got this. War measures. First of which is to measure this war. Let's support Spain. And let's... yeah, this conscription has a sliding scale of costs, where rather than mobilization where you just go to whatever level you feel like, equal cost all around. So let's take one step. Nothing is wasted by doing that. There we go. 40,000 extra bodies. So much for that pact. So, looks... alright, Czechoslovakia is at least nominally guaranteed. Are the Allies plus Romania? So we might get both our Spain War and our World War. So if World War initiates, that will, well, no, it won't take precedence. Now that we're independent, we don't have to auto-accept the call to arms. And then we could just quit the Allies anyway and protest over their pointless squabbling. When they agitate for wars, it's petty tyranny. When we agitate for wars, it's valorous revolution. We fight for justice. Big board is pretty even right now still. Slowly sliding against the Republic. Kill count is pretty even-handed. History totals are still close. Republicans do not have any manpower reserve. That's gonna hurt them. You should maybe do a law. Will not get by on just volunteers. Look, your neighbors are only taking volunteers and they're still more numerous. Work on that. $40 plus an additional week or two for the volunteers to actually travel. Any day now. Soon, intervention. Border is actually looking reasonably firm, aside from the loss of Navarre. A bit here, but then also pushing back elsewhere. There's some give and take.
Beep.
Draw out some basic war plans. The home zone. There. Finally. Spain. Time of volunteers. Yeah. Allow 6 to 8 business days for delivery.